everyone, it's Keeley here for Soy and Shea, and thank you so much for joining me for today's soap making video where we're going to go and make Spellbound. Now this soap has actually been inspired by a soap I made a couple of years ago called Book Lovers, where I made some little book embeds to go on top of the soap, and I decided I wanted to have another go at a similar soap, but this time we'll go down that sort of spell magic sort of thing. So we'll make some little books and some little wands to go on there. Now I'm going to show you how to make the books, but I must confess I have already started them. Initially I wasn't going to show how I was going to make these embeds because I actually showed how I made the book embeds back on that Book Lovers soap, and I'll leave links in the video so you can go and see how I made that particular soap. But then I figured some people wouldn't have seen it, so let's show you the process again. So as I said, I've already done the outside part of these books, but I'm going to show you how I'm going to do the inside part, and it's exactly the same way as I did the outside. So let me continue showing you how I'm making the embeds for Spellbound. Let's go. So I'm using soap dough to make the little book embeds, and you can find my soap dough recipe over on the DIY Body Care website. And I'm just laying out a little bit of cling. This is a biodegradable cling wrap, and I like to roll my soap dough between two layers of the film. It just stops it from sticking to the bench, stops it from sticking to the rolling pin, and just makes things so much easier. So I'm going to grab some of this white soap dough out here. Probably need more than I've already got there, and I'm just going to condition it up a little bit just to start getting it moving, getting it pliable and nice and smooth. And now I've got it into that sort of state, I'm just going to pop it down onto my film here. Going to put this bit of layer over the top, and I'm going to use my little rolling pin here, and I'm going to roll this out to a relatively rectangular shape if I can, and also quite thin. I want it down to about 1 mil if I can get it, so between 1 and 2 mil. In fact, I'm probably going to need even more white soap than I've got here, but this will do for now. Every so often I will stop rolling and I will pull the film off the soap. It does get a little bit tangled up if you're not watching it, so it is always good every so often just to stop and make sure that you pull everything apart so you don't end up with bits of plastic broken off or the film broken off in between the soap. So I'm going to get this rolled out to a really nice thin piece of soap. All right, I'm pretty happy with how that is looking, and that is exactly the same thing that I did with the brown piece. The soap dough got it into this sort of nice thin state like this. And what I'm going to do is just peel back the layers to give me access to that soap dough. And I'm going to start by creating a nice level edge here. So I'm going to take my stainless steel ruler. I might just pop you over there so you can see a bit better what I'm doing. I am going to press down with my ruler, and that creates a nice straight edge for us to work from there. So now I've got the straight edge, I've got myself a knife here, and what I'm going to do is measure myself 2 centimeters up and just pop a little line. And this is how tall I made my books on the brown as well. So I'm just going to measure 2. In fact, what we'll actually end up doing, so it makes it a bit easier, I will guide my ruler up. We'll sit at about 8, and I'm just going to put a little mark every 2 centimeters up. So we've got 2, 4, 6, and then we're going to do the same here, and that will just make it a bit quicker to do, just putting those little marks. Right, now I've got those marks on the white. Again, I'm going to take my ruler and I'm just going to line it up across those marks and push down, and that will give us the page height. Going to move up, I'm going to go across the next lot here. Again, just push straight down and bring the ruler up. I do find it easiest to use the ruler to do this rather than trying to pull my knife through. If I try and pull my knife through, I'll be cutting the plastic, marking my bench, and I don't often get nice straight edges. So again, we've got that one, and then we'll do the final edge here. And I'm going to get rid of that excess from across there. Now, my book covers I made to 3 centimeters long, but I'm not going to make my inserts the same size. I know from the past when I did them, I needed them, I think, did I need them the same? Let's do one and find out. So what I will do is I'm going to measure to that 3. I'm just going to cut off that little piece in there. You can see I've got my little book pages here. Going to grab one of our covers and I'm going to pop that in the middle. And then I'm just, actually, no, I will need the 3 centimeters. So I'm just going to bend my pages so they kind of make that traditional sort of shape, a little bit of a bird shape. We're going to attach that to the middle and just push down the edges of the pages onto the book. So it's actually now stuck on the spine and on the edges. So we are going to keep to 3 centimeters on our white pages as well. So again, I'm going to take my knife and I'm just going to carefully measure. I'm trying to do it so you guys can still see. I'm going to do 3 centimeters across there. So we've got, that'll be 16. That will give me enough. And then across the bottom. And then I'll just do exactly the same thing with my ruler. Oh, we don't want that one. We want that one there and that one. We'll do exactly the same thing with the ruler so we can start cutting our little pages. And then I will start sticking all of these white center bits into the brown. Okay, so we now have all the little books all made up, but that is not the end of it. I have a little pot here and I have got some black mica. I'm just going to put a bit of that into my pot and then I'm going to use some 70% rubbing alcohol. I'm just going to spray a little bit in there, just being gentle so it doesn't all fly back up at me. Give it a little bit of a mix. I may need a little bit more, I may not. We'll see as we start to do this. I now have a brush with just a very, very fine tip. I'm just going to get it into that mica and then onto the books. I am not going to try and write proper words, but I am just going to just gently go across the white soap here in kind of little and big dashes and things, just trying to make it look a little bit like there is some form of writing on these books. But like I said, I am not going to try and actually put anything that resembles words or pictures on these. One thing that did cross my mind was to maybe put it through the laser machine and see if I could get something on there, but I actually don't. I know so many people do put their soaps through laser machines, but I've had other things go through them and I just don't think it's particularly hygienic. So this is going to have to do to make these look like little spell books, and they'll all have their own little differences depending upon where I put those lines. I really am just going so completely random. Let's go back through a few of those because I had a little bit more mica on the brush, and that's what they are going to look like. So I'm going to finish doing all of those, and once I've got them done, now we can't have a Spellbound soap with magic books without having some little wands. So I'm just going to break off a little piece of the brown soap dough into a ball, and then I'm going to roll it out into what will hopefully become little wands. So I'm going to get that into that sort of shape. That's way too big, but we're going to cut that in half. Maybe get that just a little bit more pointed at the end, give it a few little twists and bumps there, and then we're just going to pop some little wands to go on the top of this soap as well. So I'm going to finish making my little wands, painting up my little books, and then we will get on to making the Spellbound soap. All right, so I've got all of my little embeds done up. I also made some little stars here to go on the top of it, and to make those, I have these little sprinkle sheets, which I've had from off Wickedly Goods. Sadly, these aren't available anymore, but to use them, I've just pushed some soap dough into them, let them set up hard, and then pushed them out to get these little stars, and I think that's just gonna really finish the top of this off. So what we're gonna do is start by pouring our lye water gently into our oils just to avoid that splashback. Going to give it a very light mix to bring it to emulsion, and then we'll split it up for some colour. All right, happy with it at that stage. So let's grab our colours here. Into this pot here, I have some Blizzard mica, which is it's a beautiful white that's got a really nice shine through it. So we'll see if that comes out in the soap. And into this one, I've actually done a mix of golds. I've put a bit of resplendent and then a little bit of extravagance, because extravagance gold is one of the very few which will actually show up in soap as being sparkly, and that's kind of almost what I'm hoping will happen with this Blizzard mica. Both of them are synthetic micas, and they have, I'll put the word on the screen because I know I will butcher it, but it's what gives the synthetic micas that slightly larger hex and that bit more of a shine through it. So hopefully that white will do the same thing as the gold. So for my main colour, I am going to add in a little bit of Egyptian blue into here. Well, I say a little bit, I actually want a fair amount in there. And then to kind of brighten it, I'm also going to add in some cornflower blue. So the Egyptian blue is from off Aussie Soap Supplies, and this cornflower is from off of Heirloom. And I like to combine these two just to give that sort of darker blue a little bit more depth. Going to get these mixed in. So I'm just going to give that a bit of a mix just to make sure we've got all of that mica up from off the bottom of the pots and mixed in well. Really pleased with this color blue here. I did want a navy, but I think that's going to work better. The fragrance I'm going to use today, it's called Magic Spell Type. So to me that says it is a dupe of some sort of perfume out there. I'm not into my perfume, so I really wouldn't have a clue what it's a dupe of, but it does have notes of coconut, orange, pumpkin. There's some spices including nutmeg, cinnamon, clove. Then there's some maple, sugar, musk and vanilla. So it does sound like it's going to be a dark fragrance, but when I check the numbers on the website, next to vanillin it says no and then NA. So I'm kind of thinking the NA in this case does mean not applicable because it says there's no vanillin, whereas some people have told me they think that NA means not available, but considering it does say no, I'm hoping they've got it right. This is the color of the fragrance. So I'm not 100% convinced it's not going to darken, so it might bring this up to a nice navy blue. Because I'm not convinced it's not going to darken, I've only put it into the blue, definitely not putting it into that creamy color, and I want the gold to really stay that color, so we're not going to add it in there either. I can see this has given it a slightly greenish touch to that blue, so we'll see what happens as it saponifies, but it does smell really good. I initially got it in to make Halloween candles with, but then I decided I wasn't making Halloween candles last year. So yeah, it's been sitting on the shelf and I thought, well, we'll try it in soap and see what happens. It looks like it is going to stay super duper fluid here, which is nice. Let's grab a mold. And I do want swirls in this because I always associate magic with swirls. What's that? Oh, it's a piece of the silicone liner, just the sort of scrappy bits from after production. So I do want some swirls to go through here, but I don't think we're going to get, because of how fluid this is, I don't think my normal curly whirly is going to work. So we'll do that for now. And what we're now going to do is pour in my cream and my gold, and I'm going to pour all of these colours in. Oh, I just got a real burst of the fragrance from out of that as that soap sort of settled down again. So we've got all of the white in there. Let's grab, oh gosh, it's smelling really good now. It didn't smell at first, and now it's kind of really popping through this soap. I'm going to move this round like that, pop it into the middle of my table. As I've said in so many of my videos, these tabletops have developed a bit of a bow. They weren't super expensive silver table things, stainless steel tables. So I'm not surprised that they've done it. A little bit disappointed because, I mean, I suppose they are 5 years old. I bought them when I first moved into my original shop. But I did notice even in the other shop, I always used to complain that my tables weren't level. But I actually did think in that shop, it was the actual shop, because I can tell you the ceilings were not level. If you actually came in, the front of the shop was higher than the back of the shop, and the floors were so uneven. I just figured it was something to do with the floor. But since moving in here, and I know, oh dear, I've just dropped my spatula into my pot of oils. I do know in this shop the floors are even, so there's definitely a problem with these tables. But what I'm going to do to get my swirls is I'm actually going to use my hanger, and because it's fluid, oh, it is starting to thicken up. I'm not going to go too heavy, but just enough, hopefully, to get some swirls through there. Let's pull all that soap off. I'm just going to give that a wiggle to get it down that end of the mold. I'm going to scrape my big pot out, and then we'll get on to decorating the top. All right, we've got our soap in the mold. It's smelling so good, and now I'm actually smelling it. I do actually think I made some little rays of sunshine, and it did play fairly well in those. They didn't go too dark. What I've got in this little pot here that's just hidden by my mold, I have got some gold mica, which I have dispersed in some oil, and I'm just going to pop a few drops across the top, being very careful to only drop. Sometimes I do this and I get a little bit too happy and I end up squirting more out than what I intend, like that. So I'm going to pop these on here, and then I'm just going to use the tip, probably of my skewer, just to blend this through and give a nice little gold wispy top to give a real feel for the magic that goes in with Spellbound. All right, I'm going to get my little skewer here and just give that a little bit of a swirl through. It is setting up a little bit quicker now, so I'm just trying to do it so that I don't make too much of a mess of those golds and get some real pretty little swirls. And once I've done that, we'll come back and we'll put the little embeds on. All right, so for my little embeds, what I want to do is pop the book so it stands up like so, and then we'll pop a little wand to the side, and then we'll pop a couple of little stars onto each of the bars as well, like so. So we'll see how we go. We'll need to make sure that my books are within the lines here, so we'll go for all the little books first, and then once I've got all these in, I will bring you down for a closer look of our Spellbound soap. there it is. Spellbound is in the mold and it is smelling so good. Really pleased with how this one has turned out. We're going to leave it set overnight and we'll be back in just a moment and we'll take a look at the inside and see if we've got any magical swirls. All right, it's the next day. We're ready to cut into Spellbound. Little bit concerned because the top of this one has browned up a little bit, but the bottom of it's still got that real navy blue sort of look. And I have had other fragrances in the past where the top has browned during that cure or the saponification process, and then it doesn't do any more. Over the next few weeks. Sorry, I was just trying to think about lining this one up. We are well off there. All right, what I actually might do to make this a bit easier is I'm going to turn this around because I know that my little wands are in the middle of my books or roughly around them, and that will just help me line Ida up a little bit better, and hopefully we will miss all of those books. All right, hold your breath while we go through, and I have missed them all. Oh, she's a little bit harder just there, and chonk. Oh, that's another end piece I'm gonna have to keep because I've just chopped it off the end. I've got a few end pieces now which are mine to take home. Anyhow, let's take a look, and that's not very interesting, is it? That's just a blob in the bottom, but I can tell you from this other side, the next bar is much more interesting. Oh, look. In fact, we're going to get even more interesting as we go down the bar because I get to see the back of these as well, and these are looking good. Look at that. That is what I was aiming for, those sort of wisps and swirls of magic going through. Really pleased with those colors that are there. I can tell it probably will discolor just a little bit because you can see the discoloring just around the edges, but I don't think it's going to discolor too badly. So pretty pleased with that. It's come up exactly as I wanted it, and it's smelling really good as well. It's such a shame that this fragrance is being a little bit naughty around the edges because I'd really like to use it a little bit more in soap, but I have to kind of work with those darker colors, and dark colors don't always sell well in the soap. So we'll see how this one goes, but I am loving, absolutely loving those swirls. They just look like little magic spells being cast through the soap. I'm really, really enjoying making these decorative soaps. I know it's been so long since I've actually really filmed them. I did them at Christmas because I felt that it was kind of expected of me to do my little gnomes. I did enjoy making them, but I just kind of felt that it was expected. People enjoy those little gnome soaps. But for a long time, I've not really had that desire to make the decorative soaps. I've been making soaps. I just haven't had that sort of, I don't know how you explain it. I have the ideas in my head, but just don't have the will to go and make the embeds and things like that. But I'm feeling so much better now, and I've got all these ideas that I've had written down for ages, and I'm finally putting them into soaps, and I'm really, really enjoying making these decorative ones again. So you'll see a few more of these popping up in the feed, and I've also got quite a number of soap making videos now filmed, so hopefully we won't have any more gaps in the videos that are coming out. But there it is. I hope you've enjoyed coming along with me as I made Spellbound. If you did, why not leave me a thumbs up and any comments down below. And until the next video comes out, I hope you have a good one, and I'll see you then. Bye.